Alright. Witch Hunter Grenade Man build endgame setup guide thingy-redo. So this is a very much a build work in progress. This is by no means the final setup. A lot of things are changing like every single day, pretty constantly. Game's new, yada yada yada. This is also specifically for like endgame mapping setup guide. It's not like going to be a leveling guide or how to do all that stuff. It's just a guide to my setup that I've been using at endgame. Or up to what, level 90 now, almost level 91. So no campaign stuff in this. Basically gonna just go over the whole setup and kind of why I've chosen the things I've chosen and just giving thoughts on all of that stuff. So yeah, start with some gameplay. But first up, so the core of the build is grenade focused crossbows centered around gas grenades specifically. We are kind of auto detonating it without using a detonator skill by getting a like persistent kind of ignite effect. You do it with either Birth of Fury unique boots or Radiant Grief unique helmet. As far as the igniting capabilities of your grenades go, they are pretty much identical. It's just which slot do you want to turn into a unique. If you use unique boots, you get a rare helmet, which is generally kind of better defensively, because helmets get better defensive stats than boots. But if you use the unique helmet, you get to use rare boots, which means you can get higher movement speed. So it's kind of that trade-off. I've just been sticking with the boots. I found them initially, and that's when I switched to them and started using this setup. But I'm kind of just sticking with the boots. Partly just because I want to see how the game feels if I ever hit like an absolute wall due to just not having enough movement speed, because my character doesn't have all that much. And so far, like, I run slower than other builds, but like it's seemed fine. Yeah, so we get through into a map. Maps are kind of freaking long in this game, so I'm gonna probably just try to hopefully get to the boss pretty quickly. This is a T13, nothing too crazy, with some extra damage on it. And so the mapping gameplay is pretty much I have gas grenade, flash grenade, voltaic grenade. Gas is main damage. For most packs, I'm kind of just shooting at the gas grenade, and we're good. And then for if I have a bigger pack or it's on cooldown or I want to CC, I can use the voltaic or the flash. Flash grenade's way better at CCing. Or not way better, but better at CCing. But it has a downside for trash where it knocks everything back when you heavy stun them and it spreads them out if they don't get killed. Which makes it really hard to overlap your damage and kill them after the fact. Whereas voltaic grenade electrocute is not quite as reliable, but it does a little bit better damage, and it can electrocute them, which is like basically a stun, but they stay locked in place. So I actually end up using primarily the gas and the voltaic while clearing. And again, as much as I can help it, I will pretty much just be gas grenading, just going. One thing I've found pretty useful actually, due to like the slower attack speed, because this just doesn't get a ton of attack speed since you're cooldown gated anyway on your damage. Something I found you can do, when you shoot, you can move, but you move slower. If you have lower attack speed, that time you're moving slower is lengthened. But if you shoot and then immediately dodge roll, you dodge roll at full speed, and by the time you get up, your character is no longer moving slow. So like when you're speed clearing a map that's not too rippy, you can kind of just shoot at a pack and immediately dodge roll as like a way to get a little bit of speed. It feels kind of nice to do. It's a little bit scary because then you're just dodging usually forward a lot, which can put yourself in some danger, especially if the mobs aren't like getting one shot. That's like that. I think this is the boss here. So the only thing that changes on boss is I also have oil grenades, which basically are just here to put a debuff. They also can keep mobs more consistently ignited for stuff while they're ignited. But the oiled ground puts fire exposure, which I don't even know how much I need it or if it's doing much of anything. But that's what it's there for. So I'm going to pre-pop that, and then I kind of want to just get the bosses stunned with Flash Grenade, which is going to happen really quickly, as you can see, and then just unload every gas grenade charge that I have. I accidentally killed the Necromancer here, which is going to kind of mess this fight up. But then once they're like resistant to stuns, I pretty much don't press Flash Grenade, and I'll instead use gas grenade on cooldown again, like always. Try to keep the ground effect up, and then Voltaic becomes the new filler, which can shock enemies as well, and it can build up the electrocute, but unless it's a really tanky boss, you're probably just getting some stuns and never hitting an electrocute. Okay, that's kind of the mapping. I think that's good enough. So let me cover the actual setup and why I am doing the things I am doing. Starting with the gems. I have... First thing that shows is sorcery ward from Witch Hunter. You can support it with cold, fire, and lightning mastery supports to get +1 level if you have spare int. It just gives you a very, very small amount of extra barrier recharge delay, so it's like not very important. Gas grenade, main damage. I have it linked first off with inspiration because it costs a disgusting amount of mana. Even with this inspiration in, it's kind of crazy. But so yeah, lower the cost. Rising Tempest. I put these, I guess, in order, probably more so of importance. It would be like that, and then 25% weapon elemental focus, 25% more LE, 12% more LE for each skill of a different type, elemental type. So the Voltaic plus the gas is fire, Voltaic is lightning. You're pretty consistently getting that to be a 24% more. And then this last one is Immolate. I had infused fire for the 25% gain as fire, just generically as well, but I took that out because I'm currently doing Cheater Herald bug thing, because just kind of have to almost in a way for damage. Hopefully they fix this soon and then everybody suffers, honestly. But if you link Herald of Ice to Cold Infusion and you link Herald of Thunder to Lightning Infusion, you get the 25% extra from those supports on all of your abilities, not just the Heralds. And additionally, you do not get the downsides on your abilities. So like this has 50% less fire and this has 50% less fire, but they don't actually do the downsides. It's really stupid. But if I wasn't doing that, I would maybe put infused fire back in here. The reason I'm not is because it would lower that cold and lightning that I'm gaining. And secondly, flash grenade, main CC guy. I have it linked to magnified effect scatter shot, so we get more grenades and then covers a huge area, so there's maximum stun potential. Ruthless, every 5th use is 500% more stun buildup. And then I put in heft, 30% more max fizz. You could also put in things like there's, I don't know the name of the support, but 50% increased stun buildup just generically. Probably be another option. Voltaic grenade, again filler damage and semi-utility. So I've got 30% CDR, 30% lightning pen, don't know how important that is. Payload, which is really nice for like whatever your secondary kind of damage one is. You could also put payload in your gas grenade, but I don't want to. I think it's better in your secondary one that you're not spamming as often, because then the less cooldown isn't that big of a deal since you're not spamming it on cooldown. You're kind of negating the downside in a way. And then Stormfire is really nice. Once you shock on a boss, the shocks do not expire as long as they're ignited. Bosses aren't permanently ignited, but it's pretty close. So like once you get a shock, you can usually let it sit there for a lot longer. And then I have fast forward, less skill duration, just to make it detonate quicker for mapping so that I can get a more immediate CC out on trash mobs. Oil grenade has persistence so that the oil ground lasts longer. It also makes it slower to detonate, but it doesn't matter because we're only using it on bosses. It has strip away, which makes the exposure effect, which is the reason we're using it mainly, a little bit better. Another increased duration for ground effects, and 25% more attack speed so that I'm just not locked in the animation of shooting it for quite as long. You could probably also get this onto like a flash grenade potentially, or even the voltaic grenade, but just somewhere that has an open socket. And again, for my auras right now, I'm running Herald of Ice, Herald of Thunder with that shenanigans. If it was fixed, unfortunately, I feel like the spirit options for the build kind of suck really, really badly. There just isn't good stuff because I'm not evasion. The only real good defensive one is Wind Dancer, which gives crazy evasion, but I have Iron Reflexes, so I can't use it. And the armor equivalent one requires you to be constantly full breaking enemy armor. I don't know what's going on there. It sucks, but I would be running Overwhelming Presence, which lowers enemy stun threshold and ailment threshold, makes them easier to stun and like shock and stuff, which is okay. And then besides that, I've tried War Banner. Maybe I would put that back on. I've tried Herald of Ash. I don't ever notice it doing anything. War Banner's okay. The problem is placing the banners is not instant, so you have to go through an animation to place them. And then once you've placed them, it's a pretty small area that you have to stay within, or else you lose the damage buff. It's kind of janky. Honestly, what maybe I would do is just only use Overwhelming Presence and put every single one of the spirit support gems into it. There's Cannibalism for life on kill, Precision for accuracy, Clarity for mana regen. Definitely all three of those, but then maybe also put in the 1% life regen one and the extra recovery from flasks. That might be legitimately the best option, is to just fucking 6-link an Overwhelming Presence, which is really silly. But yeah, that's the gems. Passive tree, quickly. Ascendancy, sorcery ward, very nice. Make me not die to elemental damage all the time, because without some sort of elemental mitigation, you probably will. I currently have explosions as my other one. If Uberlab gets fixed or I do it, whatever, whenever I get Uberlab points, I would probably drop this and get the full concentration thing, because I really want this damage, because our damage has become a little bit lacking, and especially if they fix the heralds, need some damage back. Yeah. Then on the actual tree though, just pathing out the start, kind of getting all these notables, they're all quite nice. This whole wheel's definitely really important. Overwhelm, all these are just super good. Backup plan is decent. We want to get armor as our defense kind of on the tree as a primary one. Unfortunately, the armor nodes just aren't that good. So it's like, we have to just pick what we can get. There's some jank with this node, 40% armor if you haven't been hit recently. So I have armor, but then when I get hit, I lose it. And it messes with sorcery ward, because if I get hit for like 500 LE, my sorcery ward goes down to 2.5k. And then there's like a 5-second recharge timer on it. Or I think it's like 6 seconds or whatever. But then 4 seconds into that recharge timer, this armor from this node comes back because I haven't been hit recently, and it resets the timer on sorcery ward. So instead of my sorcery ward being like 6 seconds to recharge, it's like 10. And it's really lame, and I wish that wasn't a thing, but I don't know. Even with that considered, I think this node is still worth it, unfortunately, because that's just the sad state of armor nodes on the tree. They're just that bad. And then I'm making a huge trek. This is a recent change over to Warrior Marauder area for some more armor. I I think it's worth it. I still don't really know. It also gives us access to grabbing beef for a couple points, which is a decent amount of HP. And then I think eventually I'm going to get these points for Devastation, which I currently have anointed because it's like one of the only cheap anoints that I could find that did much. But once I get a better anoint, I could maybe put these 4 points in to get the AoE damage. Over here, this is like pretty low prio, but I kind of like these nodes. I think they're fine. Finishing blows, stars aligned, just low life stuff. When enemies get low, they just kind of melt really quickly. Stars aligned in particular is really good, but the pathing takes a little while to get there, and the rest of the nodes are just kind of okay. This whole grenade wheel is fantastic. I have an extra AoE node because I didn't have anywhere else to put a point when I leveled up for now, but I would drop this if I have like, you know, if I'm 1 point away from like a notable. We go down, get the cooldown here, get the grenade thing here, get the AoE damage here, iron reflexes, leather-bound gauntlets. This is actually one of the good armor/evasion nodes, one of the few on the tree. Move over to the jewel socket, chance to detonate extra time, and some attack speed right here, really nice. And then also Giant Slayer, I think is really solid for damage against rares and uniques. And then we go over towards Ranger. Path through these elemental nodes. This is another one that's like, I think, pretty low prio along with the low life, but I think they're fine for now just because we're pathing right next to it. Maybe this gets dropped at some point, maybe this gets dropped at some point. I don't really know, those could be on the chopping block. But then over here to specifically Catalysis, very nice. Gives some phys mitigation and damage, and then just some more damage here on these elemental ones. Other things that could be useful is like jewel sockets in general are quite nice. This fire damage thing could be a pickup. And I haven't done any weapon swap stuff still, but I need another weapon that's like actually good to even start considering it, so I haven't put really thought into that still. But and then gear, weapon, crossbow. You really need a grenade fires additional projectile base because otherwise they just aren't good. And I think physical damage is your best bet. Just as much as you can get. Weapon LE prefix at high amounts is definitely also good. And then suffixes, like mine has pretty bad suffixes. I don't think any of it's doing too much. I guess strength is giving some life, but plus projectile level of gems is pretty good for damage, but it's really brutal on how much it increases your mana cost. So if you could sustain that cost, then it's like fine, fantastic. But chances are it could make your skills unsustainable. And then attack speed suffix I think is actually pretty nice. Even though you're getting cooldown capped on bosses, just like quality of life of attacking faster is always going to be a good thing. So that's pretty nice. And then we have the unique boots. Again, just they do what they do. You can corrupt them to try to get a second socket. Helmet, body armor are both pretty much just life, resistance, defenses as much as you can. Pretty much just whatever. Resistances are top prio across the board. My amulet is life and res, tri-res. If I had some damage prefixes, that would be hugely preferable. But it's hard enough to get something like this already anyway. And chaos res is super important because mobs do crazy chaos damage. Rings are pretty similar to amulet. You want to get res. I do shoot for 1 mana regen roll on my gear. I think a ring is a good spot to do it rather than amulet. 1 mana regen roll, and then also at least 1 big flat mana roll. So I have actually I think 2 right now, 1 on my belt and my ring, but I kind of only need 1. And otherwise just resists life. And then ring prefixes flat damage or flat evasion. I don't know if you can get percent weapon elemental as a prefix on rings like you can in PoE 1. I haven't seen it, so I don't think so. But yeah, like flat evasion, flat elemental damages on the prefixes are pretty nice. Belt, life, armor is good as a prefix. I don't think any of the flask mods matter, but then otherwise it's just resists and stats. Gloves, life resists. Attack speed on gloves is pretty nice. I actually do quite like that. The flat damage rolls on the prefixes are actually pretty good. They go decently high, so I like that as well. And then like things like strength and whatever. My flasks, what I like is increased amount recovered on both of them. Just maximum total recovery. And then the life flask, I have reduced charges used. You could probably get away with the passive charge generation one as well. That's probably fine. And then my mana one does have the passive charge generation. So with all of that considered, I have dumped quite a lot of currency into this character. But I have, you know, almost 3,000 life, 3,000 elemental shield, almost 7,000 armor, but honestly the armor just feels really underwhelming, unfortunately. Like it's mostly just a tool to get the source reward number to go up more than anything else. It's yeah, it's a whole thing. But yeah, that's the build. It's fun to play. Grenades do have like some issues in certain map layouts, like really indoor or narrow ones where the grenades just get stuck on walls, stuck on obstacles, fall off cliffs. And then the damage is delayed. But when it's good, like in this map's not a terrible one, like it's pretty fun. I like it. Yeah. That is the build. Thank you for watching. I hope it was helpful. See ya.